these cities promote what we now know as sprawl. And that's really typical, where you get residential areas and then you move out to the commercial areas, and what you're going to mostly see are strip malls and chain restaurants that are sort of adapted to those areas. So they're based on being automobile friendly. Many buildings, if you build a business in a commercially zoned area in many cities, you're required to build a parking lot of a certain size. So that's another example of how these urban design, urban planning is built around basically fossil fuel burning at the private individual level. It's very rare to see pedestrians in a lot of these areas. Many of them don't even have sidewalks. So these are all, again, part of the same issue. And of course, a less energy efficient and large ecological footprint. So increasingly, though, sprawl is getting a bad name, and a lot of people now recognize that it's not so desirable. And the housing crash definitely affected that as well. But of course, people have been criticizing it for a long time. Okay, so some of the impacts of zoning for sprawl. You've got parking lots, which are, many of them are zoned into place. You have to have large parking lots if you build a new building. That is going to concentrate all the oil leaking, all the gas, rubber that kind of comes off the tires. Right? All that gets drained out and gets put into the water stream, so that you have very polluted urban water systems. Right? Any storm that comes in is not going to be rainwater that goes down to the drain. It's going to be rainwater plus all of this. You end up clearing a lot of land, so the ecological footprint is very large because that land is taken up, of course, and it's going to depend a lot on surrounding systems as well. And then the energy consumption is very high. But it's not just about energy, ecology. We also have, increasingly, people are looking at the health impact of zoning for sprawl. So if you compare controlling for other factors, if you compare counties that have very low density, you see higher rates of blood pressure, higher rates of obesity. There's other health impacts that are sort of built into the urban design of a lot of these areas. And it's clear that people walk a lot less. So many people in suburban areas or in smaller towns, the only exercise that they really get is if they drive to the gym and exercise there, right? But in the course of your daily life, you exercise very little. And sometimes we don't emphasize that, especially when you're young. I don't know about you guys, but I never think of walking as exercise or even riding my bike, which I do all the time. But the fact that it's viable for me to ride my bike to work means that I'm getting exercise on a daily basis. Like, even if I don't think of it that way, it is. And in a suburban area, if you don't have that opportunity, the fact that it's unviable for them to bike or walk to work means that they're not getting that exercise that many of us get just in the course of day-to-day life, just because it's viable for us not to drive. And there's also fiscal impacts of zoning for sprawl. And again, this is one of those ways where, another theme of this class is that solutions to many of these problems can solve multiple problems at once. So, if many suburbanites are not really impacted by any of this argumentation, polluted water, energy use, which many are not clearly, because it continues to go on, and if they're not impacted by obesity and stuff, many people are impacted by fiscal issues. So when you have a sprawl, you're going to get population growth that's very dispersed across an urban area. That means you've got to have infrastructure. Who builds the roads? Right? People who buy a new house 30 miles away from the city are not responsible for building the road that leads to that neighborhood. The city's got to build that. You need street lights. You need schools nearby. Right? When you spread all this stuff out, you're going to have more and more miles of roads, more and more traffic lights, more street signs. These things cost money. And that goes into the budgets of a lot of these municipalities, and they have to raise taxes to sustain that. And then you get drives to cut down taxes, which leads to, because the taxes are so high, there becomes to be a popular revolt against taxation. And if taxes get cut, what gets cut is not road budgets, of course, because people need those. You're not dependent on maintained roads. What gets cut is education, social services, and so on.